the direct result of these active fivefold ministries are us being debt-free, us having an understanding of our specific business in the art world and in the music world as well. Direct result of these active fivefold ministries that we are sowing into with our time and our finances has also resulted in more unity in our marriage, in our intimacy, in our sex life. It's resulted in more patience with you towards me on parenting and wanting to do things around the house while also managing a business. You are not just seeing me as a wife, but you understand I have all these positions that I'm wanting to function in, and I'm not just confined to being a wife.
So we are that esteemed and important to God. We're not just some sinners saved by grace.
All right, cheers to Jesus.
I'm property of Yahweh, a product of Yeshua. I'm property of Yahweh, a product of Yeshua.
Fed by the teachings of Dr. Miles as well. So since being fed by his teachings, being fed by the two active fivefold ministries that are here today, our local church and our South African church under Prophet Leon, what would you say, what have you noticed? I would love to hear that.
Yes, I have noticed a sense of urgency to our purpose and our contribution to the community. I've noticed a greater sense of responsibility for our financial, life and discipline.
Okay, what has changed in our life since we've been tithing regularly? And we don't just tithe 10%. We tithe 10%, but we also will sow. When our pastor asks us to give to a mission, we give to a mission. When Prophet Leon is asking us to sow into the vision, we sow into the vision. Anytime that there's a message that either of them preach that really touches my heart or touches your heart, we sow money. We sow a seed into it because we know it's from God and it's blessed us. So if it's blessed us, God needs to receive a harvest. So we sow into that. And since that practice of giving our finances and giving our gifts to these houses that are feeding us, what have you noticed in our lives, in our finances, in our marriage? What have you noticed?
So the freedom really comes from being able to understand the finances and how the kingdom works. It's interesting that Jesus actually never spoke about tithes.
Yeah.
Because tithes should be
everything. It should be a generous giving.
Every other kingdom has a taxation system, and the kingdom of God is not any different. It's the same thing. So Jesus never spoke much of it because it's almost obvious. He spoke of giving, and that's the difference. Is in America we pay
state and federal tax,
custom duties and taxes out of obligation, but also to prove that we're citizens. But there is no law that states that we should give to our neighbors. So it's a completely different system than our system.
Saying with taxes,
Correct.
Things that we're obligated to owe is different than the kingdom of God system.
Absolutely. The difference is we could talk about all of that.
Sure, but we're looking to just reveal what has changed.
What has changed.
So I would say the biggest change is we're debt free. I would say another big change is that we understand the revelation that God gave us about prophetic portraits. Right? I was given that revelation. I did not understand my niche that he had given me specifically in the art world until I painted Prophet Leon and his family. And then I realized, wow, this is what I want to do for all the saints. I want to honor the modern generals of the kingdom of God, the generals of faith who are expanding the kingdom of God here on earth. I want to bless God's children. And my favorite style of art is portrait, but I also like it to be a royal portrait. And I received understanding from sowing into Prophet Leon's church, understanding of my niche and my calling in the art world.
And my biggest understanding of this, which has really helped us, is the fact that I've heard messages, and I have even read myself in the gospel of giving and tithing, but I believe that there's a deeper understanding of that from a kingdom concept perspective, because again, Jesus is a king and he has a kingdom, which means that if you understood that how kingdoms work and how a kingdom's economy works, then I believe it gives you a deeper sense of understanding of giving and receiving. So there's this term called commonwealth. The idea is that there's no man that shares that holds a higher standard of wealth more than the other. It's common. It's from the very word commonwealth.
Some would refer that to socialism.
So socialism is not commonwealth. It's different.
Right. It's where you're.
Socialism
I know. It's where you're
has
giving the
some of that
1%.
idea of
There's the
commonwealth.
elites who have all the money, and then socialism where everyone else is left with only a fraction.
Correct.
Or equal.
In socialism, the only difference with that is you don't have God included in it.
And that's the
But
danger. And that's why it is dangerous.
Correct, and that's why that's dangerous. But the idea, though, it's a kingdom idea. It's a kingdom concept that is in all kingdoms where the king owns everything in the territory within it, which means
he will then
that the citizens
guarantee
within
success, a good economy,
Correct.
and thriving of his community, which is why everyone who
Yes.
comes before a king says, "Long live the king," because the king takes their wealth and guarantees that he will compound interest it.
And the
Expand it.
idea is that the king not only takes their wealth, but he's the one who owns their wealth and owns them as well.
Takes away some of the stress.
So what he does is, in a kingdom, the king is the owner of
Yes,
the whole
the
territory
Lord, the Lord of everything.
and everything in it. So
I think that's
when
one
you
thing that helped
understand
us,
That
and that's why we were
Correct.
able to get out of debt, because we
Correct.
understood, okay, our money belongs to Jesus.
yeah.
It is there to bless his kingdom here on this earth.
Yes.
And so if we are not remaining out of debt,
yes.
and if we're not focused on understanding how to spend our money, how to invest our money, then we're not a part of the kingdom of God. Because the first thing is learning how to let the Lord of Lords be the Lord over everything that you own. That's
Correct.
the first sign of you being surrendered to a king.
Yes.
That you're allowing him to own everything. And
Correct.
that's what helped our business. You know, we're able to have a functioning business. Right now we're still just gifting people, but the clients are going to come. Right now we just want to bless the children of God. We want
Right.
to sow into God's economy because we know we're going to reap a harvest. But that revelation
Yes.
of common wealth is what has
Yes.
allowed us to be successful in our
Yes.
marriage, in our kingdom ministry, in our kingdom business, in our
Yes.
kingdom media.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is so important. Why? Because I believe there's a big misunderstanding in the world as far as how wealth is distributed by God. Because, you know, everywhere in the Bible, God says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, and the
Yes.
fullness of it. That's actually Psalm 24. And that idea is so beautiful because what in the world? Let's stay right there. I thought the cat was dying. But the idea is that in a kingdom, there's no one who is rich.
Yeah.
There's no one who is richer than the other person.
Yes.
Everyone is of the same wealth. I mean, how beautiful is that? So it absolutely eliminates competition as far as this is my private ownership. Because in a kingdom, there's no private
And that
ownership.
allows unity to really be a thing. And there's a blessing in unity.
It gets rid of so many different things like that.
The
The
com-
never own things privately,
Yeah.
which means that the king owns everything, and he could actually take what you have today and he could distribute it somewhere else to somebody else.
And also-
and he can do that
Yes.
justly because it is his property
Yes.
and his
And you
wealth.
don't have that stress of having to guard it, because what's given to
Correct.
you by the king, it belongs to the king, but no one can steal it, right? If
You
the king
are
gives it to you, he's
correct.
given it to you to manage it and steward it. And so
Correct.
that stress
you're not an
of
owner, you're
that
a manager.
right, but that stress
Yes.
of having to protect it, like,
Correct.
oh, is someone gonna steal from us when we
Right.
leave? The reality is no one's
That's
not
right.
going to, because God is guarding it, because it belongs to him anyways.
Yeah. If you can set your mind on that, like the church is literally a government present on the earth today. So God cannot do anything on the earth without coming through its legal authorized body.
Which is why we've
the
submitted to
government
churches, which are governments of
ecclesia.
God. We have submitted to churches, the government of God, because we understand
Correct.
that we can't be processed unless
Mhm.
we submit.
So it is vitally important, and we can do a teaching on
Yeah, we're going to,
ecclesia.
because we're not going to talk
on
about it
itself.
right now, because we're focused on doing one thing, and that's
Yes.
testifying of the modern fivefold ministry. What happens
Yes.
when you sow, what happens when you submit, and what happens when you
Correct.
glean from a fivefold ministry, and especially if it's your local church. The purpose of this is to testify that fivefold ministries are active today. They did not cease when the disciples died, when the original apostles died. we are testifying of how our lives dynamically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, business-wise, ministry-wise, has changed since sowing into fivefold ministries that are active, that are obviously prophetic, and that have schools. We are students of Global School of Ministry. We highly recommend that school. You're also a student of Dr. Miles Monroe with his books and teachings, and we've invested our money and our time into these schools because we understand that knowledge is power and that ignorance is the downfall of man. And that's where Satan can really, take advantage of us, is through our ignorance.
Yeah,